Hey, so thanks for coming out. I wish we had more people. Man, I tried hard to fill this room up, but
the important ones are here.
The important ones are here. That's right. And actually, I know Greg. I haven't seen you in forever, and I recognize a lot of people in the room. But when Carla first wanted to do outdoor tech, I sort of had to think about it for a second, right? Because outdoor and tech are not always two things that go together. But I'm a big outdoors guy. I live in Chattanooga as a lifestyle decision. My wife and I both do. We could, you know what? You're being very distracted, Christy. So we live here because of all the things there are to do here. And I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about that because I think most of you probably already know that. But as it relates to outdoor and tech, this is interesting because I had to look this up this morning, but who's got a good definition of technology? Because I bet it's not the one that I found in the dictionary this morning. Because it's very important with what we're about to talk about. I'm sorry?
A formalized replicable way of solving.
Actually, that's pretty close. That's pretty close to what I've got. Normally, when Carla first asked me about it, I was thinking it has to have a battery or plug into a wall. But really, technology is a practical application of knowledge, especially in a particular area, right?
Sure.
That's why you two guys are here. So really, that dumbs down the definition of technology quite a bit for the outdoor stuff. But when you think about it, GPSs, apps, electric bikes, Garmin watches, activity trackers. You've got software like Strava. I mean, if you pulled up Greg's mobile phone right now, it probably has 20 biking apps. Some things that tell you where it is, where you can go ride your bike, how far you went, what your friends are doing. Competitive nature. When you think about social media, and we'll talk about this a lot in a minute for both of you, as technology as it relates to business development, getting people informed about the outdoors, getting people educated about what you each are doing. I mean, the list goes on and on. Even materials, right? Tent materials. I read about something. I just bought a new tent, and it's a big deal to shave a pound off of it, but there's some new thing that I just got that because of the material, this high-tech material, this outdoor tech material, I now shaved a pound off of my backpacking tent. So there's a lot of things tech-related in the outdoor industry, especially with you, because of that, and some of the other things that I've seen you guys doing. So let's talk about some of this, but I'm gonna start with Justin because I know Justin the best, because Justin and I met building all the tech out on my van. So Justin, tell us just a little bit about Site 7, what it is that you guys do, and a little bit about where the name comes from, because I find that particularly interesting.
So my name's Justin, Site 7 camper vans. We're located off of East Main Street, downtown Chattanooga. We have been in business roughly a year-ish. We build camper vans. There are differences between RVs and camper vans, and that's sort of a vague definition, but basically the idea of a camper van is the emphasis is on quality and simplicity. And we try to tailor builds based on how our customers are going to be using said vehicle. We put a lot of emphasis on simplicity. Growing up in the RV industry, I learned a lot about how mobile camping vehicles work and how they don't work. And in the past, 40 some odd years, there's been a lot of emphasis placed on making things bigger and making them complicated and making them comfortable and
making them cheap.
And making them cheap, not necessarily cost cheap, but quality cheap. And I worked all through the dealership, from finance to the service department, and had firsthand experiences just seeing these brand new vehicles break. And it was it made an impression on me. So I love the outdoors. I love the idea of travel. I love vehicles. So the camper van is sort of an answer to the problem of wanting a vehicle that you can travel in and be comfortable, but it's not so complicated that it is always needing repair. So we try to develop systems in the van that are built like extremely well, and they're very robust, but in the event that something happens to them, they're very easy to repair. So that's sort of my take on
And
the
they can
camper.
handle going up and down a dirt road.
Yeah, they can handle
climbing a mountain.
Yeah, dirt roads. You can take them out into the middle of the woods, and the systems are thoughtful and easy to operate, and they're as minimal as possible. And they're user friendly. I mean, nobody wants to spend time working on their toys.
And the name,
They
Site
wanna be
7.
using them. So Site 7 is, my wife and I used to go to school at UT, and we would meet friends from Chattanooga basically almost every weekend-ish at a campsite that was in Tellico Plains. We had a running sort of, running deal with our buddies that we would be at Site 7 on Friday night, and if we saw you there, awesome. So after a couple years, it kind of just became the spot. So Site 7 is a throwback to
That's
kinda
great.
camping.
And something else about
friends.
Justin is before Site 7, he was a custom bike builder. So he would build bicycle frames actually just down the street. So juxtapose a name that you have to explain with one that you don't. I mean, your name is all in the title, right?
Adventure
Tell us a little bit
sports
about what you guys are
innovation.
doing.
Would you share the microphone with them?
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Here you go.
Oh,
I
we
didn't
should be
know if
mic'd
those were
up,
working
or
or not.
oh no. Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Is that better?
That's the mic so that everybody can hear. The other mic is for the recording.
No problem. So yeah, Adventure Sports Innovation says a lot in its title,
Yeah.
but it also seems to leave a lot more questions than answers. So yeah, I think my background, Justin, is also I loved outdoors, adventures. Grew up with technology was always the enabler for me. I'm not a super athlete, so I wasn't really a marathoner or somebody who did those things, but I liked being able to go bike riding in the woods before mountain bikes existed. I rode my 10-speed out and beat the crap out of it. It was terrible, but in the end, found better and better technology has evolved to support those things. And tried all kinds of crazy sports, from bungee jumping to skydiving and hang gliding. Here in Lookout Mountain, actually, was where I learned to do that. I always love to try new things, but I found that it's very hard to try new things sometimes. They're few and far between. You can read about things, you can hear about things, see videos, see TV shows, and say, wow, that looks really cool. I'd like to try that someday. And someday never comes sometimes. And when I started to look at the idea of what kind of business would I like to be involved in and start, when we said we were going to become entrepreneurs, we're going to open some business in the adventure sports world, I started researching and found that there have been an increase in the sheer number of inventions being made over the last 10 years. The number of products being launched, whether they're battery operated, whether they're human powered, has just skyrocketed. And if you look on YouTube and say top 10 this, top 10 that, top 10 bicycles, top 10 off-road vehicles, top 10 whatever, you're going to find not top 10, you're going to find top 100 of things that have been invented and people have tried. And yet, very few of them actually make it to market, make it to mass market, where people can actually buy them and use them. And the only ways to buy a lot of these things are on the internet. You buy them sight unseen. You trust some reviewer that you don't know, some Amazon guru or somebody who's a super shopper, and then you get this thing and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work, maybe it's cool, maybe it's not. When I got the first electric unicycle, the solo wheel that's over there in the corner, there was no instructions how to do it. There was a couple of YouTube videos out there. There was some people who had figured it out, but they were not teachers. And frankly, I struggled to learn how to do it. So the mission of our company is to find cool new technology that actually works. We research it, we meet the companies, we find out if it's really well made, and bring them together in one place so that a community of users can actually try them, touch them, feel them before they buy them. Now, granted, I'd love to sell them too. You know, we are a retail shop. We do want to sell the products, but you know, not until somebody says, yes, I want to make a lifestyle choice. I want to try that off-road vehicle that's in the back. And if you like it, well, I can help you become an owner. And well, hey, my company can also help with new community building too. And we can help find, you know, the 10 people in Chattanooga who've bought Solo Wheels and bring you together every other Friday, right? And do an event and maybe do a master class or maybe create competitions. So the other thing that fascinates me, and I'll jump off my soapbox then, is fascinates me is the creation of new sport through technology. So someday I'd love to have an innovation theme park where we have big land and we have big things. One of the sports that fascinates me is wind flying, where people use wind tunnels and learn how to do aerobatics. Kind of like if you skydive, and if you've ever skydived, you know, people do flips and barrel rolls and whatnot. Well, now with wind tunnels, people are doing the sport. They're creating a sport. It's actually on its way to possibly becoming an Olympic sport. Probably in 5-10 years. It'll be a while, but those are the kind of things we love to see. So
I did that in Las Vegas one time, by the way. That
Did
was
you?
a lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah, the iFly, the indoor one.
Yeah.
We want the outdoor one.
Yes, because that's why we're here, right? To be in the outdoors. So that's great. In fact, when I first met you, I don't think all of that came together, but that's fascinating. And I'm going to also ask you about, in a minute, not yet, so I don't want to get ahead of myself, but how some of your VR, virtual reality items allow people to experience things without actually having to go there. Maybe they can't, whatnot. So I'll come back to that in a second. Justin, you said something a minute ago that I wanted to come back to. So there's getting outdoors, right? And how many people follow anybody? Does everybody have an Instagram account? Can I just make that assumption? Maybe not Christy. Christy and I debate social media, the value of social media. A lot of people in van life, it's actually a hashtag, van life. It's a very popular one. Is it? Okay. A lot of people in the van life movement are actually not just out enjoying and camping, but they're also working, right? There's this term called a digital nomad, which is the idea of somebody living in a van. These two guys on the front look like they would understand what it is because it's mostly people under 30. But they're living in a van and they're traveling and they have jobs, whether they're writing computer code or they're self-promoting themselves on social media. But van life is something that you've looked at. In fact, I think you and I had a beer one time and we talked about having a fourth model that you would have called a digital nomad, which requires a lot of different tech to make happen. So tell us a little bit about that, because I know you don't have it now, but you've talked about it and you've had people ask about it.
Yeah. So this thing kind of weirds me out a little bit. So the idea of the digital nomad is just, like Matt said, there's a growing number of people who are working remotely, and remotely today means basically anywhere. It could be a shared workspace. It could be, in front of a TV with, wireless internet. It could be on the road with a hotspot, and a
national park.
Yeah, a national park. I mean, basically anywhere that has cell service, somebody can access the internet. It's basically just the expense of data from a cellular provider. Because the kind of adventure wagon or van scene is growing and it is affordable to a lot of people, it's enabling people the ability, or affording them the ability to travel and work.
And not pay rent.
Yeah, and not pay rent. So, you have these professionals who are working remotely, traveling, and in many cases living in vans. Maybe 20 years ago, this would have been very common for someone who was in a large RV. But as RVs are designed to basically go from campground to campground to campground to campground and be on the interstate, which still affords somebody the ability to travel. But as like wireless and cell phones and hotspots get better and better, people are able to get further and further from civilization and still be connected. So it's a really kind of cool and exciting idea as far as the prospect of being able to work and travel. As far as like the vehicle is concerned, because like tech, computers, cell phones are getting smaller and smaller and the batteries are better and better. The energy that you need to power those is getting less and less, and therefore it makes it easier to pull off and maintain.
So tell us a little bit more about that, and I'm going to come to you for a second about that. Tell us about the decisions that have to be made about how to power a van, because you're not running off the car battery, right?
Yeah. So there's like powering a van.
It's a big discussion. I know.
It's a big discussion, but it could basically come from like several places. You have the vehicle has an alternator. It produces 12 volts. When you're driving the car, the alternator charges the batteries. You can tap into that system and charge a separate battery bank that works independently of the first one, and that battery bank can power all of the accoutrements in the van. That could be lights, it could be USB chargers, it could be an inverter, which can make 110 volt power. You can also have shore power connections, which is very typical for like RVs, where you would pull into a campsite or pull into a gas station or a restaurant or like somebody's backyard and actually plug into the grid. The third option, which is getting better and better, is solar. So our vans use a combination of basically all three of those to power a battery bank that is tailored to how an individual is going to use their vehicle. Some of those battery banks are very, our battery systems or electrical systems are extremely basic. It's just batteries, USB, some LED lights.
So like mine.
Heater. Yeah, like Matt. Matt has
I have a Goal Zero battery system, right? Does everybody know Goal Zero?
Which is a self-contained battery inverter unit that can either be charged from solar or charged, well, it can be charged basically anyway.
And then juxtapose that with Glenn's van.
Juxtapose that, which is like a standalone battery system, all the way to, we've done battery systems that are powered by alternators that charge inverters. Second alternators, scratch that, I messed that up. We've done battery systems that have multiple alternators charging large battery banks to power heavy
batteries,
lots of batteries to power giant inverters to run AC units and TVs and satellite dishes while somebody sits in a parking lot and watches TV.
Which happens.
Which happens.
He built one for a guy whose goal it was to be able to run the air conditioner and watch a movie while his daughter played tennis at a tennis match. I'm not going to use his name because people in here might know him, but.
So how long does that last? How long can you sit in your car, your van, watch with the AC on and the TV going and all that kind of stuff?
It's a little bit all over the place. I mean, the system that we made, you could be running AC on high, stereo, satellite dish, TV for probably 3 hours. If you go back to, which I'm sure you've heard this, in car racing, there's light, cheap, fast, pick two. There's kind of a crossover to an electrical system in a vehicle.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you considered, have you looked at like a night system or like a Thermo King APU? Or anything like that, where you put a full-blown APU on one of those? Because I mean, it's a commercial truck.
Yeah, a lot of, so it's much easier to.
An APU actually, just so everybody knows, an APU is actually just a generator.
Yeah.
That does exactly the same thing.
But now you know what you've just described? You're talking about an RV.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So Yeah, the generator is, I guess, the other option aside from the alternator, shore power, and solar.
Louder.
It's louder. It is the silver bullet for like power in a vehicle.
It scares the critters away at a campsite.
So-
You can't have that. We're in the great outdoors.
And right now, there's like we're sort of transitioning. Like the batteries are making huge. I mean, it's incredible the changes that are going on in batteries. We're going from like AGM batteries to lithium batteries, and the lithium style battery is like a.
Well,
In fact,
there's
International tried to make what was called a night system, right? They bought a company called Night System, and it was a battery-based APU,
Right.
as opposed to a generator-based APU. But all the truck companies didn't like the idea because it made the truck too heavy.
Well, the
Yeah.
latest thing, the latest and greatest thing, and in fact, Justin and I haven't caught up in a while. We should catch up and talk about a few other things. But I was looking at somebody on Instagram. The hot thing now is to find a Tesla car battery and to use that as your system, because not to get into a longer conversation about 12 volt, 24 volt, but they are 24 volt. And Patrick, we're going to transition to you here in a second, because batteries have a lot to do with your business, especially this thing here in the back. But a Tesla battery is apparently a wonderful way to go for a really long time. You just have to find one. Tesla's not going to sell you one, so you have to find one out of a wrecked car. But it's interesting about battery. Tell us a little bit about. I mean, my son and I rented one of your devices, and we're out in the river, and we got about 25 minutes, and then the battery started to go down. So tell us about battery technology as it relates to your world.
So yeah, we have a big variety of products that we offer. Most of them are battery powered. We have some that are human powered, bikes on pontoons and such. But on the battery side, most of what we have today is lithium ion batteries, and they're the same basic chemistry composition that you find in your cell phone and your laptop batteries. The exception to that being the Swin car, the electric vehicle back there. That one is lithium iron composition battery. So it is still lithium ions that are being excited and moved around inside the battery cell itself, but the composition of iron adds a component of longevity for the battery, adds a component of how many life cycle charges it can go through that is better than your traditional lithium ion. There's probably 10 different chemistry compositions of lithium and some other elements that are being experimented with, and so you talk about Tesla, right? They're in that world of how do we find the better battery type. Ultimately, though, all of them need charging, and that's the challenge. You talk about what kind of charger. We're trying to do mobile operations with our things. So you rode the Chimera electric bodyboard on the river, and you experienced, it runs really fast while the battery is lasting. It has a reserve at the end, so we don't strand anybody on the river, right? So it has a small reserve. It'll go 5 miles per hour, putt you into shore. But then I have to recharge that battery before the next guest can go out. Now I have.
Does it have to cool down first, or can you start?
Not really. I mean, for 5 minutes.
Okay.
It cools down very rapidly. But we have a couple of batteries per board, so we can cycle a couple of riders through. But I need to plug it in right away. In my shop, I have plenty of electricity. If I'm out at Chickamauga Lake, not so much.
Now, how long does it take to charge, for example, that battery that in the device that I
If you
used?
drain it all the way down to zero, it's about 2.5 hours.
Okay.
Generally, we drain it right down to the reserve, and it's about 1 hour, 45 minutes to charge it up. If you can find a plug. So try finding a plug at Chester Frost Park. There's one per pavilion, and it's usually got like 18 extensions on it.
To plug into Justin's van.
That would be nice, right? Now, I was certainly encouraged many times, just buy a generator and put it in the back of your truck. But, I'm promoting a green company with, nice technology, quiet. And here I'd be running my quiet devices along the street and then going into this truck and go, have this machine start up and charge it up. So we've opted not to promote that way yet until I can find a generator that will power me up in a quiet, more economically friendly way. I've encouraged 2 of my manufacturers to build me solar panels. Like on the front of that swing car, I'd like to have a solar panel. I can park this thing out in the parking lot and let it recharge itself. And that's, I think, the way things are going to have to go. Probably in your van business, the same idea. If you can have solar cells on the top of your roof, you can be charging all day long.
Right.
Keep those batteries fresh and ready to go.
Yep. So I have a solar panel, what's called a 100-watt panel, which is a small panel, probably the smallest panel. And it keeps my battery, for the most part, topped off. I don't use a lot of power, but Carla, you asked a good question. How much, how long will it last? And it just depends on what all you're using. Let's pivot for a second. Oh. Yeah, Greg.
So I'm just kind of wondering, you guys are startups right now, very small companies. What do you see as your growth path? Are you planning to stay small? You want to get out and take over the world? And what kind of technologies do you see are really going to be critical for you as you grow?
I have a long answer to that. You want it for first, second?
No, go for it.
In our case, we certainly have a vision and a path for where we want to be. It's all a matter of how well Chattanooga, helps accept our business and helps us grow. But assuming that we stay on the trajectory we're on and we're getting customers who like this stuff, we certainly intend to reinvest and grow this business to add more lines of product, more depth, so more volume. Right now I have very small fleets of things. I can't support a classroom of 40 kids to come out and do my things. I can only support up to 5, 10, 15 people in a group. So I want to be able to grow my capability, the robustness, but frankly, I want to get to, as mentioned, an innovation theme park. That's real, that's a plan. We actually have researched the products we'd like to have there. We know the kind of things that people would react really well to, that need fixed land, that need, I want to get to, I have land and water equipment, and I haven't really talked through everything, but right now we expand through virtual to get to air. We'd love to get to air someday, right? Have people riding the drones that are flying around. But you need controlled airspace, and you need various approvals and licenses. We'd love to have people, so we can exceed that expansion. And I can certainly tell you that the concept for our business of having people try new technology and introducing it in a safe, effective way has really sparked enthusiasm and interest among the people who've come to my store in the last 2 months since we opened up. I've been suggested that the next franchise should be in 6 different locations. Everywhere from Asheville to Colorado, somewhere, Greenville, South Carolina, 2 different people. So yeah, we can see expansion in our future. But we have to do depth and breadth, and then perhaps other locations.
Patrick, can you tell us exactly what different things you have on offer for people? Hold the mic close to you because it's really hard to hear in the back. There's a fan going back here.
Okay, Sonny, I'll talk for you. How's that? All right, so sorry about that. So we have a range of land and water products for the most part. On the land, we have the swing car electric off-road vehicle. It's called the E-Spider. That is fully off-road capable. This is my wife Carolina, by the way, my business partner, who's reminding me to say that one has. I mentioned it has the different type of battery, and it does have a 4-hour battery life. That's constant drive, 4 hours, and even if you drain it going up a hill, it regenerates going down the hill. So that one is available for tours, and we take people out, teach them how to drive this crazy electrical vehicle that drives differently than anything else, and to drive off-road. But we also have those for sale. Everything that we do is rental, tours, sales. On the land, we have a line of personal transport devices that are all human-operated personal transport. Human-operated, battery-powered personal transport devices, like the electric unicycle, which is a very versatile one-wheel device that allows you to go up to 30 miles in range. We have two-wheel self-balance boards, what are traditionally called hoverboards. We are trying to change the language around that because they don't actually hover over anything. They do have wheels. We have, some of you might have seen me riding before the session on the hover shoes. Again, I don't like the name because they don't actually hover, but they are, that's the brand name that they came up with. That's a single platform for each wheel. We have e-bikes. We have a mini e-bike. We don't have a full line of e-bicycles. There's already a company in Chattanooga that does that very well. I didn't feel the need to come in and compete with that, but we do have a couple of interesting ones that are a hybrid of scooter and bicycle. We also have an electric skateboard. We have a hybrid of a scooter and a skateboard called the scooter board. There's a number of products like that. On the water, we offer the electric jet bodyboard. The Chimera that Matt had mentioned, that they came out and tried, and we rent those right down here in the river underneath the Market Street Bridge, and people go flying 20 miles an hour up the river, laying on a bodyboard and just powering themselves with a little throttle. We also have an electric surfboard. We actually have two of them. We have one that's a more traditional shaped surfboard, where you get up and carve turns on the surfboard without the need for waves. You have a remote control that pushes you from behind with the jet propulsion, kind of like what you see out of the back of a jet ski. We also have a model that moves slower, but it's designed to be a cruiser because it's an electric stand-up paddleboard. So for those of you who've ever ridden on the Tennessee River on a Sept, when the current is high, it's a little tiring to try and go upstream when the river's moving at 5 miles an hour against you. So our electric motor on the Sept goes about 7 or 8 miles an hour. It will defeat the current. It will get you upriver and get you going long distances and far away. You still stand on it and guide it with a paddle, but you can motor, and that motor will last, by the way, about 2.5 hours. So that's a pretty cool thing, and you can always shut the motor off and paddle along as much as you want. And finally, on the water, we have the Schiller bike, which is a bicycle on pontoons. It's a racing grade bike with carbon fiber frame. Those of you who like cycling would love riding this as a bicycle. Those of you who love boating might like it as one of the fastest human-powered craft out there on the river right now. There's a few racing kayaks that can beat us for sure. But yeah, just a typical person out there pedaling along goes pretty darn quick and can go right up the current. And
oh, go ahead, finish your thought.
Finally, we have virtual reality simulators. We have a hang glider that you can come and ride in our store 3 inches above the ground. We have a roller coaster that you design your own track and then you ride the actual track you drew. And then we have an experience on top of a skyscraper simply called Vertigo, and I'll leave that one to your imaginations.
Yeah. So back to sort of Greg's question, Justin, in terms of growth. You know, it's funny because growth doesn't have to be. It can be as small as a one-man shop. But in Justin's business, I know because I've researched it, a really big shop. Let's forget about Sportsmobile for a minute, but with the exception of them, is like 30 people. So by Unum standards or Blue Cross or Kinco, like these are tiny little companies, but what are your sort of thoughts on?
For old school folks, Choo-Choo Customs, that was a pretty good sized company.
Yeah,
that was a big company.
Yeah, they had it going on for a while. I mean, so I'm really fortunate to be in a position where I'm very busy, and I have customers from all over the country, which is, I mean, it's awesome. I've been in business a year and have had people from Louisiana and Colorado and Ohio and Chicago and Ohio again, and it's been really good. I am more concerned with being the best versus being the biggest. So that means that my approach to growth is going to be very slow and calculated, because the product that I want to leave the shop, I want it to be hands down better than anybody else's. So we're spending a lot of time and energy and on making sure that what we're doing is very thoughtful and very calculated, and we're looking at available options and thinking through how systems are going to work both like now and like in 10 years. And our goal is to make sure that those systems are working 10 years from now the same as they are working today. How that affects, like my growth trajectory, I feel like I'm on the right path, but it's a decision that like I've made, and that's where our focus is going to be, and the people that I have on my team, that's what we're going the same direction.
So let's stay on growth for a minute, and also back towards tech, right? Which is half the reason why we're here, and talk about social media, which is definitely part of tech, as it relates to the promotion of each of your operations. Justin, you go first, but I found out about you guys through social media. I had no idea that you guys were even here, and I saw some girl riding a thing around on the river on a Facebook post, I think. But I know that Site 7 has 1,000 plus followers now, maybe?
Yeah,
and that's actually how you've gotten a decent amount of your business, right?
Yeah, so social media is, for better or worse, a fairly large part of our business. My approach to social media is different than a lot of builders and van companies. It's sort of more of a more transparent approach to life in a shop. So we show a lot of progress pictures and things coming together and nuts and bolts, and it I think resonates really well with some of our customers. We've got actually I've gotten a fair amount of business from social media. It's there's lots of ways to approach that. Matt talked about the van life hashtag, and that's it's kind of an idea of this very the van life idea is a very romantic notion where it's you're traveling to beautiful places, you're a beautiful person, it's the endless summer.
The weather's perfect.
The weather is perfect. It's and that has, as silly as it is, really pushed the small camper van scene into the limelight, or it's lots of people are familiar with the idea of a camper van, and it's no longer it's some creepy dude in the van and beware. It's
usually we tell our kids not to talk to people in vans.
Yeah, people in vans.
Right.
So social media is you can portray that however you like, and I've just chosen to have more of a an honest approach. Some days are awesome. We get to see a van leave with a customer who's totally stoked and it's beautiful. And there's other days where, the air compressor broke and the, plywood buckled and, you are mad and want to throw wrenches, and that's real life,
Hey, that's social media content too.
Yeah, it is. And it's kind of funny because I can look back through my feed and be oh yeah, that was a bad day. And then other times look back and be oh, this is something I forgot about. This is, this guy flew in, we picked him up, his jaw hit the floor, everybody was happy. And it's how that relates to sales and us growing in the future. I'm not sure. We'll probably start to sort of hone that a little bit, but as of right now, I want to keep sort of a transparent approach to how we operate, and the materials that we're using and the time that it takes to do something correctly and the thought that we're putting into it.
Okay, so one thing Justin's not telling you, because he's too humble, is that his first piece that he did here in Chattanooga was such a masterpiece that when you started posting pictures of it, and the word started getting out, you would have people call and email and send Instagram messages specifically, you did this for this guy, I want something similar. So an example of your work is often your best calling card in a business where you're really one of the only players east of the Mississippi.
Yeah, we get, so aside from social media, which we do get business from, word of mouth is everything. I mean, like a small business lives and dies by its reputation, and like I said, I've been super fortunate to have awesome customers who have let me, sort of do what I do best, which is work hard and like put thought and love into what I'm building. And that, it's, people talk.
Yeah,
so yeah, it's
well, let's.
good.
I want to hear about social media and you guys, because Justin is different. You're in the tourism industry, and tourism, as we all know, is there's the traditional, well, I can't see the magazines around here, they're out front, but there's advertising and get out, and the newspaper and television and radio, but there's social media as it relates to people coming to town, they're trying to find something to do. Maybe they walk past your shop, but maybe you have a suggested post that's put into your feed because of your investment in that. Just tell us a little bit about how that works for you guys as we start to wind down the summer.
Yeah, so social media has become very important for us. So that even when we were planning the business, we knew it was going to be very important. Everything that we do is very visual. Riding an electric bodyboard in the river is exciting, it's interesting. If you have a video or a photo, it captures people's imagination. And if you can put that in front of somebody, rather than put our name, which doesn't really tell, it tells you something interesting is going on, adventure sports innovation, but it doesn't tell you what it is or that you can do it, right? It sounds more like maybe you're building something. But when you see those images and you can put yourself in that place, then it becomes maybe a little more interesting. And we thought very carefully about our brand image, if you will, before we posted our first thing, because it's tempting for us to take manufacturer provided images of the product and put this beautiful image of the swing car out there, for people to see. But frankly, it's not about the technology, it's about the outdoor adventure. The technology is an enabler. And it should always be about the person enjoying the time outside. So we have a thing in our branding book for all of our staff who help us with anything on social media or taking pictures with their phones. Always focus on the face, the smile, the reaction, what somebody feels like after they've done something. Get that image. Now, it's great if the product is placed in there too, right? And you want to see what is it that they're excited about. But it's really more about the person than the technology. The technology should just simply make it happen. It should be behind the scenes. It should be, I went out and did this great thing out in the woods yesterday. What was it? I was riding this electric vehicle. Oh, great. And eventually they mention the name of the product maybe. But it's not about the swing car made me this, have this wonderful day. No, I had this wonderful day because I was driving this electric vehicle and I was, powering up hills I didn't think I could get up and going over obstacles I didn't think I could do. So we make it much more human. And then to your point about tourists, it's actually interesting. I think if I was to say target market, I'd rather have a lot of people in a 1 hour, 2 hour driving radius as repeat regular customers than customers from around the world who do it for a one-time basis like a Disney World ride. Yes, we love tourists too. We absolutely
Their money spends the same way.
They certainly do. And in fact, we've had a lot of tourists here over the summer. Chattanooga brings in a lot of tourists, and thanks to all the wonderful marketing work that goes on for that. But the people who live within the region are those who are more likely to develop a community with us of those people who want to adopt new technology and start using it. So I'm happy with anybody who wants to try our new technology. How do we reach them? Social media is definitely a great way, and whether you're boosting a post on Facebook is one way that we've been doing it. But the boosted post tends to go to your followers, their followers, and it kind of spreads out in this chain of related people, and it doesn't necessarily, it can certainly go global and go other places, but a boosted post tends to be geographically centered versus an ad can go to a wider dispersal. So you have to think very carefully about, as a startup, we have a really small budget for advertising. And we have to think about, are we going to put it in print media? Are we going to put it on TV, on radio? Are we going to put it in digital form? And if in digital form, what are we going to do? We're experimenting. We're learning as we go what actually has yield. So we're trying to make sure we put little things in our ads that we can get feedback from customers. How did you hear about us? Matt, when you came in and you said, I heard about you through Facebook, that made my wife's day because she's been putting a lot of effort into that Facebook campaign. Instagram, we
You need to let her do it. She's the.
Our daughter is actually one of our video editors.
Oh, right.
So she does a great job with some of the tech things that it takes me 4 hours to edit a video. It takes her 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So and so in fact at our store we put one of our staff in charge of Instagram recently because frankly I don't know how to manipulate it properly. I don't know which buttons are. I can't edit a video the artistic way it needs to be done. I asked one of our staff, hey, could you take this piece of video that I just filmed on my phone and can you put it out there for the public? And in 20 minutes, she had put this beautiful set of images around it, little hearts on it and other things that just made, my picture that I took of this couple out in the woods driving the cars, and she took it and made it a piece of art that, frankly, 300 people liked within a couple of hours.
It's amazing what people like. Justin and I, one of the things when you build a van is weight. You have to keep weight and ideas. So I have a friend that owns a scale company on the other side of town, and he has a way to weigh the van. And we weighed the van, we drove it up on these 4 things, and I videoed it, walked around, and I was sort of trying to be funny, kept it to 30 seconds. We put that thing out there, it got 65,000 views of weighing a van on a scale. Right? There's nobody pretty, it was just me in it, right? And it was funny. Well, we've just got a couple minutes. We try to keep these things to end right on time. Is there any questions in the last couple of minutes?
Justin, you talked about digital nomads and needing to be within a range where cellular service can reach those folks. Is there a way to extend the reach of people by using satellite resources, or is the cell phone the limiting factor?
No, someone could certainly use satellites. It's just basically the amount of money that someone's willing to pay for data. So based on that, you could work from anywhere.
You don't have to have internet to
No,
work.
and you don't even necessarily. I mean, that's just, a lot of people who are writing code or what have you, they could write code all day. They could walk by a restaurant and they could, dump a file to the cloud and, be back in the woods. It's pretty open-ended.
Anybody else? We also have, is your van out here? My van's out here if you want to see it. We've got, I keep calling it this thing. What's it called again?
Swing car.
The swing car. The swing car's in the back. You guys are not open today, but you're open.
We'll be open tomorrow at 11.
Tomorrow at 11.
We've just launched a membership program that we're super excited about. So we've had customers asking us who have been there 2 or 3 times already, saying, "Oh, well, how do I keep my costs down?" And so we've offered a membership program.
Just one last thing, because I mentioned it earlier. Have you ever had a situation where your VR, right, the stuff that's not real, it's not the real outdoors, where you've been able to let somebody experience the outdoors that maybe was disabled or couldn't do it or just couldn't get outside and enjoy, but your technology allowed them to do that?
Yeah, sure. There's been lots of people who have been on our virtual equipment that aren't very willing or able in some cases to get out and do things like hang gliding or even going to amusement parks perhaps. Our swing car actually is designed to enable adaptive driving. It's hand controls, and we've actually done driving with paraplegic drivers who've come. We actually did our first adaptive day on the swing car where we brought 3 gentlemen who were all wheelchair bound, but upper body capable, and they got out and drove these things, and it was amazing. The reactions from them, the one guy sort of broke my heart with his comment. At the end, I'm videoing him. He said, "What did you think? How did you like it?" And he's like, "That's the furthest I've been from the sidewalk in years."
Wow.
The whole the smell of the forest, and he just started talking about his experience, and it's like that's what I want, right?
That's great.
And to your point about virtual, we can get those kind of folks can certainly come and have a simulated adventure. And that's kind of where, what is the evolution of my business? It's evolving it so that we can give experiences to people who don't normally get them.
Okay, so I've been flying hang gliders since the mid-90s, so I'm going to come in one day and see how well that thing compares to the real thing.
I can tell you the reaction from our friends up at Lookout Mountain Flight School has been wow. They said, wow, it's really realistic, and wow, I would never fly my hang glider the way that pilot flew in that program, because it scared it scared me a lot.
Well, Carla, do you want to wrap it up?
Yes, I want to thank all of you three for speaking with us today. And we have a small gift for each of you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it so much.